Hey, it's Jason ODB, the Lincoln Addict, hitting you with another review. This one's going to be a little bit different. If you recall, and you've been watching this series in my number 8 review, which I posted yesterday or earlier this week, might have been yesterday, I reviewed a 61 Lincoln Continental convertible, kind of a rust gold, orangish, type color that was very, very rough. Okay. If you haven't watched that one, definitely check that one out. Check that one out. It's not super long. I think it came out to around 20 minutes. But ironically enough, I had mentioned a Lincoln Continental in that video, and I stumbled across the photos that I took, many moons ago on, believe it or not, on May 16th. And I forget what year it was, but we're talking 10 years ago or something like that. And this is what we're going to look at. This Lincoln Continental, it basically, as far as we know, it kind of rusted away. And we'll talk about it. This is the key. The owner would not sell it. Okay? So, oftentimes, if you customize these cars, you get folks that are a little bit upset. They go, how could you ruin a classic? We've all heard it. Why do you lower these cars? Sometimes they're trolls. Sometimes they're people that generally are like, hey, you guys made the worst decision of your life, okay? To each their own. I always say it. If people own a car and they want to do what they want to do with it, whether it's a Cadillac, a Lincoln, dude, do it. Now, this is one thing that I don't think gets enough attention is when someone has a car that they just won't sell, and, maybe they've got a pipe dream to restore it, which, is okay. I know there's people out there, they've got ideas, they want to do stuff. But if you generally know that you're not going to do anything with it, it's time to let it go. I've got a 79 C30 dually that, I love the truck. I have some plans for it in my mind, but it's where it's sitting and starting to get rough, and I have to make that decision. Am I going to be that guy that just says, no, I'm going to keep it and it's going to rust away, or am I going to punt it, let someone else enjoy it or build it or whatever? So let's dive into this 61. So we know it's a 61 because the front ends on these cars, right? So, we've talked about, and I'm going to have to kind of get used to, I'm using Google Slides here. So the front end on these cars is very distinctive. Oftentimes, we'll hear people refer to them kind of as looking like the Thunderbirds. But with this car, and I'm probably not going to zoom into too much only because I'm using Google Slides here, and it's not like in some of the things I'm doing. But I saw this car once a year every time I started to go down towards the beach in Anna Maria Island. And every year that I stopped, which was generally each year, go in, hey, does this guy want to sell the car? Different stories. It was a doctor. He doesn't know where the wheels are at. Weird stories of, why this guy wouldn't want to sell the car. One time it was a super high price. It just wasn't worth it. But you could see this car where it's sitting, it's just baking in the sun. It's black paint. And like I said before, I'm not a paint and body expert. I'm not a scientist. But I can tell you, when you start looking at older cars, depending on the climate, they will deteriorate pretty quick when they're sitting outside. This car, you could start to see here where the paint was fading. This car over time, over the course of, 8 or 10 years that I would see it, Tony Boss Bolin also had seen this car a bunch based upon where he would travel. This thing just developed these huge holes right here. I mean, this thing got so far gone just in me seeing it the once a year that it was like, dude, this car is literally just rotting away. And when you look at it here, for the most part, it's a solid car. If you look at the interior, I mean, dude, I remember, walking up on this thing for the first time going, man, this is a nice car. It's got the foot pad down here, which is the factory piece, kind of missing one of the items here. But when you really, really look at this car, I mean, it's nice. I mean, damn, look, the battery power was still hooked up. When I opened it, the guy said, yeah, sure, check it out, take photos, whatever. But this light comes on, so boom, it's got power right there. Steering wheel looks good. Seat looks good. I mean, this is a car that, had it had all 4 wheels and the guy would let it go for, this, several grand it was worth, then boom, punt it and let someone else enjoy it. Even looking here, we've looked at a lot of different cars. The first thing that sticks out to me is, okay, where's the shroud at? But For the most part, you've got the factory reservoir here, no AC. I don't see, or excuse me, I do see the AC compressor. Sorry, you got AC car, and some weathered, a little bit of weathered there on the air cleaner. That's normal. All this kind of, whatever you want to call it, patina or originality is what I'll call it. This is all fine. This is good. Now, I didn't get underneath it. I was going on vacation, I think, this day with the fam to the beach, but I didn't get under the car with a screwdriver and stuff because the guy was like, hey, he doesn't want to sell it, some story, whatever. Now, shout out to our friend Rusty Wall from the Raddies, the Ratty King. We joke around with them. He loves these moldings, okay? Anytime you ever talk to Rusty, man, I tell you what, he loves these moldings. And this molding here was a factory dealership option, okay, not from the factory. So let me clarify. It wasn't a factory option. It was a dealership option. So these were kind of like little things they'd put on or they could sell. I did a video one time of an old pamphlet that's a couple of different ones, but one of the books showed the factory options, of course, the stuff that comes like the speed control and whatnot, but the options that were available from the dealership, and this was one here, that would obviously help with door dings and things. But when you look at the body in the car, pretty solid overall. Now, I am going to try to zoom just this one time. If you look at the deck lid, this is what you will see oftentimes. You're going to see a deck lid that is starting to develop holes. Okay, this is fairly normal and fairly common with these cars. I've talked about it in the past. You can get to the point where, like, let's say this guy says, sure, I'll sell the car for $4,000 or whatever it was worth. If this deck lid is totally gone, I've said it many times, you'll end up spending more on a deck lid sometimes than you will on a car, potentially. If you want a factory one, they're getting real hard to find. The sedans and the convertibles, they don't mix. Obviously, they made a lot less convertibles. I've talked on the podcast about the numbers. Were way higher for the sedans because of the cost and things like that. But when you look at this, it doesn't look horrible. Believe me, I've seen far worse. But that's just something that, if I had been looking to really buy this car, I would have wanted to get up underneath it to check around underneath the radiator support. Obviously, open the trunk. I've seen people where they'll go to buy a car and they absolutely fall in love, and the person's like, I can't get the trunk open, don't know where the keys at, whatever. And you get back and you see, man, it is all rusted. Always look in the trunk, have someone get the trunk open. I hung out with Chris Dunn many years ago. It might have been the first time I hung out with him, and he had a car that was in Cop and a Half, which is that Burt Reynolds 80s movie that was filmed in and around the Tampa Bay area, and it was a black car. And I forget if it was a 62, 63, right around there. But we couldn't get the deck lid open, and of course, Chris, we popped the back seat out. Chris did, and he, used the peak molding, and we went pop, pushed right on, right where we had to, and boom, the trunk opened. We were trying to get something out of it, so they can be opened. Now, the other thing that I'll point out, if I remember correctly, it's kind of hard to see. This is a vinyl roof car, I think. God, it's kind of hard to see. Now I don't remember. It looks like vinyl roof, right? If the vinyl roof is here, that is always suspect, right? Because I bought a car and I had a 67, and man, it was all shot back here. It was all shot back here. So believe it or not, it's kind of funny. I can't remember if this is a vinyl roof car. I think it is a vinyl roof car. I don't know now. Actually, from here, it doesn't look like it. So I know some of you guys are probably screaming at the screen going, it isn't, no. If it was, let's just say it's not, okay? Because I can't even tell right now. It's been a long day. If it was, that's something to be very suspect of, because this glass, or around here, this framing, I spent a lot of money on my 67 having all of this repaired, all of underneath this repaired, and then of course the A-pillars were pretty shot. But that's for like a whole nother video. I haven't really talked a lot about that. The one public service announcement on that, a guy in Australia just bought a car, and it looked like a nice car. had a vinyl roof on it. He was praying the whole time. It got delivered to Australia. He got it. He's like, okay, this is a nice car. Started ripping off the vinyl top. Yeah, it was bad. One of the worst roofs I've ever seen. I mean, horrible. Like to the point where he's like, maybe going to have to cut the whole roof off another car. I'm not making fun of the guy. Like, dude, like that sucks. People that have vinyl roof cars, they haven't cut the vinyl roof off. They're always going to tell you, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, everything's good. Again, most people, when they want to sell something, they don't care. They've got that money that's getting ready to be handed to them. I've seen people tell people anything. Oh, yeah, it's perfect. We had the vinyl roof off once, whatever. Again, that's for a whole nother video, but just be wary that if there's a vinyl roof on these cars, it can hide a lot of stuff. I'm telling you. And I felt so bad for that guy in Australia. He posted in the Lincoln Addict group on Facebook, and maybe I'll share some of his photos and kind of go through a review on his. I think and I hate this zoom on here. So I think there's a couple little dents here. Nothing crazy on the bumpers. Again, all that stuff can be repaired as long as they're not too rotted out. You see the antenna. I haven't talked about this a lot, but the antenna was here in 61, 62, if I remember correctly, and then 63 it moved. But that was always cool. I always liked the Impalas with the dual antennas, but this is what we got here on the Lincolns. And from here, it doesn't look like a vinyl roof. So, again, I apologize. It's just been a long day. I'm like, I think it is. I think it's not. I don't remember. The most odd thing on this car was the dude that owned this little car lot was like, yeah, the wheels we don't know where they're at. They got misplaced. And I'm like, really? And then, like 4 or 5, 6 years later, the car was moved. So, I don't know. The guy just said the guy would not sell it, and he was a doctor, and he supposedly had money, and he was going to redo this car, and, of course, I seriously doubt it ever got redone. It got to the point the car was so bad, I wouldn't be surprised if they scrapped it, really. Not that they should have, because there's plenty of great parts on this car, but that's what happens. You see here the manual cranks. Again, that's not uncommon to see, and I'll have to clarify if anybody knows, comment below. I forget in 1, 2, and 3, so 61, 2, and 3, I call those kind of the earlier year 60s. And then you get to the 4 and 5s, you obviously had the change, and then 6 and 7, they're kind of in their own hemisphere. But the 61, 2, 3s, I forget if they had or at what year you could get the power vent windows, if you could. That's just not one thing I know off the top of my head. But I mentioned in the video, too, earlier this week, late last week, about this film that is on these. These didn't look bad this day, but again, you will see if you own one of these cars, or if you've ever looked, there is like a film on there. It is weird, and when you take that quadruple zero, so I know what you're thinking, what the hell is that? When you go to like Ace Hardware, and you go look at the steel wool, there's a very fine steel wool, and it's 4 zeros. That 4 zeros is fine enough that when you put like a Brasso, or you put whatever metal polish, it will clean that stuff up and make it look fantastic. Okay, I've used it on all kinds of things, including these trim pieces right here for the A-pillars, and it always does wonders. But this one, I want to kind of keep a little bit shorter. I appreciate everybody coming back to watch. Leave a comment. What do you want to see? What do you like? What do you want me to maybe switch up? I can't guarantee I'll get to everything, but it certainly helps kind of steer where my mind's going. This car, don't know whatever happened to it. We believe me, we tried to buy this car. We tried to say, dude, just, thinking back years ago, I would say this car probably would have been a good deal like at about $4,500, back then. Now, granted, the market's changed a little bit, but as this thing starts to rust away, it gets, it's worth less and less because now you have more money and metal fab, metal work, that stuff costs a lot of money. So, but back then, if you would have said, hey man, the guy wants $5,000 and you negotiate to 45, or maybe he's at 55 and you get it for 5, that's what this car, in my opinion, was worth back then. It could have been worth more in parts. I think we all know that, but to keep this thing on the road, it would have been cool to see it. But my suspicion is that it's gone. So I will just, shameless plug, check out Lincoln Addict Podcast, however you find podcasts. And if you're one of the old school dudes that hasn't found podcasting yet, many of you are using an iPhone. Download or go to the pre-installed podcast app. It's that purple icon that you probably have never opened, and just search Lincoln Addict. At Biggity Boom, you'll find Lincoln Addict Podcast. If you're on Spotify like I am, or maybe you use Pandora, we're on, I think, Tuned In Radio now. Pretty much all of the tentacles from the host, which is Podbean, which you can also download their app. Pretty much all the tentacles from out there, they do get updated, so it's pretty cool. If there is a platform that you traditionally listen to podcasts on, and for whatever reason Lincoln Addict is not there, drop me an email, lincolnaddictpodcast@gmail.com, and I will try to submit it to that platform. So thank you guys for watching, and ladies, stay on the rise, and we'll catch you next time with another video. I'm going to keep them going. Peace.